It was a crisp October morning in 1893 when I, Dr. John Watson, found myself once again seated across from Sherlock Holmes in the sitting room of 221B, Baker Street. Holmes was in one of his characteristic moods, simultaneously restless and contemplative. "I require a case, Watson," he declared abruptly. "Something to engage my faculties and free me from the dreadful ennui of inaction." As if summoned by his words, Mrs. Hudson entered bearing a sealed envelope. "A letter, Mr. Holmes," she announced. Holmes snatched the envelope with an eagerness I had not seen in days, scrutinizing the wax seal and the handwriting on the front. "Interesting," he murmured, breaking the seal with a quick motion. The letter was short and to the point. "Mr. Holmes, I implore your assistance. A darkness has fallen over my family estate, Thornfield Manor. Strange occurrences plague the household, and I fear for the safety of my sister, Lillian. Please come at once. Yours faithfully, Edwin Wetherby." Thornfield Manor, Holmes mused, passing the letter to me. "It appears our services are required in Surrey, Watson. Fetch your revolver. We may be dealing with more than mere phantoms." By late afternoon, we arrived at Thornfield Manor, a sprawling Gothic estate shrouded in mist. The manor's high, pointed gables and ivy-clad stone walls gave it a foreboding appearance, and I could not help but feel a chill as we approached. Edwin Wetherby greeted us in the dimly lit foyer, his face pale and drawn. He was a man of middling years, his dark hair streaked with gray. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for coming. I trust you received my letter." "Indeed," Holmes replied, removing his hat and coat with practiced ease. "Now, Mr. Wetherby, tell us everything. Begin at the beginning and omit no detail, however trivial it may seem." Wetherby led us to a grand drawing room, its walls adorned with ancestral portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow us as we entered. He gestured for us to sit before beginning his tale. "Thornfield Manor has been in my family for generations," Wetherby began. "But over the past fortnight, it has become uninhabitable. Strange noises echo through the halls at night. Footsteps where no one walks, whispers in empty rooms." "Has anyone outside the household been allowed access to the manor recently?" Holmes inquired. "No," Wetherby said firmly. "The staff consists only of myself, Lillian, our housekeeper, Mrs. Trent, and the groundskeeper, Mr. Harris. None of us have been beyond the village in weeks." "And you suspect these occurrences to be deliberate, not supernatural?" Holmes pressed. Wetherby hesitated, then nodded. "I fear someone wishes us harm. But who and why, I cannot say." Holmes rose abruptly. "Let us waste no time. Show me the locations where these disturbances occurred." Wetherby led us through the manor, pointing out places where the mysterious events had taken place. In the east wing, a vase had shattered with no apparent cause. In the library, books were found strewn across the floor, their spines split as though flung in rage. In the dining hall, a candelabrum had been upended, its candles burned to uneven stubs. Holmes examined each scene with meticulous care, his sharp gaze darting from one detail to the next. He crouched to inspect the vase fragments, ran his fingers along the edge of the library shelves, and sniffed the burnt candles in the dining hall. "Interesting," he muttered more than once, though he did not elaborate. That night, we were given rooms in the west wing. I had just begun to doze off when a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. I bolted upright, grabbing my revolver, and rushed into the corridor. Holmes was already there, his sharp eyes scanning the shadows. "It came from Lillian's room," he said, and we sprinted down the hall. We found Lillian Wetherby trembling by her bedside, her face pale as milk. "It was there," she stammered, pointing to the far corner of the room. "A shadow, tall and dark. It reached for me." Holmes moved swiftly, examining the room. He stopped by the window, which was slightly ajar. "Someone was here," he said, gesturing to a smudge on the windowsill. "Watson, fetch a lantern." I believe our visitor did not come through the door. Outside, the grounds were dark and shrouded in mist. Holmes held the lantern aloft, its light cutting through the gloom. We followed a trail of disturbed grass and broken twigs, leading us to the edge of the estate. "There," Holmes whispered, pointing to a figure darting into the trees. "Quickly, Watson." We pursued the figure through the woods, our footsteps crunching on fallen leaves. The chase was relentless. Just as we closed the distance, the figure stumbled and fell. Holmes leapt forward, seizing their arm. "Who are you?" Holmes demanded, dragging the figure into the lantern's light. It was the groundskeeper, Mr. Harris. His face was dirty, his eyes wide with fear. "Please, sir," he stammered. "I meant no harm." Back at the manor, under Holmes's stern interrogation, Harris confessed. "It was all Mrs. Trent's idea," he said. "She told me if we could frighten the Wetherbys enough to leave the manor, she'd pay me handsomely. Said she had a buyer ready to purchase the estate. And the noises, the shadows, the disturbances?" Holmes asked. "I did what she told me," Harris admitted. "Moved things around, made noises in the halls, dressed in black to frighten Miss Lillian. I never meant to hurt anyone." Mrs. Trent, confronted with Harris's confession, initially denied the accusations. She crumbled under Holmes's scrutiny. "The manor is worth a fortune," she hissed. "More than they deserve. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. You will have plenty of time to reflect on your actions," Holmes said coldly. Wetherby summoned the authorities. The next morning, as we prepared to depart, Edwin Wetherby thanked Holmes profusely. "Your brilliance has saved my family, Mr. Holmes," he said. "How can I ever repay you?" "Your gratitude is sufficient," Holmes replied. "And perhaps, Mr. Wetherby, a word of advice. Treasure what you have. For even the grandest of manors cannot replace the peace of a loving home." As we rode back to London, Holmes lit his pipe and gazed out the window. "Another case solved, Watson," he said with a faint smile. "And perhaps a reminder that, in the shadows of greed, even the most elaborate schemes can crumble under the light of reason."